Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Tracy, Florida Homestead. And tonight is Spooky Story Spectacular. And from now on until the Halloween, we'll try to bring you a spooky story every night, or at least once a week, from our favorite tales, Spooky Florida. Now, there are a whole set of these books. These books are tales of hauntings, strange happenings, and other local folklore. Um, we used to do this when we were young, but we didn't have internet and YouTube and all of that nice stuff when I was growing up, so we had to sit around a campfire and do this. But since people don't sit around campfires anymore, this is my campfire. And, of course, my campfire here. So, say hello to my son James.
Hello, guys.
He's going to be my sound effects for tonight, and he will also be doing readings every other week. We're going to take turns doing readings. So tonight, our story is called Old Red Eyes, and this took place in Jacksonville, Florida. We hope you enjoy it. Tilly was raised by an old aunt after her mother had died, and her father was sold to another master who lived far away from their plantation. Her aunt, descended from a long line of African princesses, was a conjure woman and a healer who could summon the spirits, called lords of the manor. To her, she needed them. Tilly and her aunt lived in one of the semicircle of houses made of tabby oyster shell cement. The semicircle was important. Tilly's old auntie explained to her it was the pattern used by the villages back in Africa. It was important to remember the old ways, to remember how they had lived when they were free and living back in Africa. Tilly had never been free. She had been born right on the plantation, but she still attended the all-secret ceremonies held by her auntie and other folk who had come from their homeland. Memorizing the ceremonies, learning some of the languages. She was fiercely proud of her heritage, and fortunately their master was limited about this sort of thing. He himself had married an African-American woman and set her free. Someday Tilly knew she would be free too, someday. In the meantime, she grew up tall and strong and very pretty. Her auntie was proud of her and started to teach her such conjurings. If she learned well, she might become the next conjure woman to support their slave village. Tilly wanted to learn, and she studied with a will. Her studies were all made easier by the master of the plantation, who used the task system to work his plantation. Under this system, a specific amount of work was required for each slave to finish daily. Tilly was very good in the household, and her auntie arranged for her to do something in the morning allotment of the house cleaning, which left her afternoon and evenings free to teach and tend the little garden, fix the meals, watch the chickens and other livestock, mend clothes, and study conjuring. Life was pretty good compared to what it might have been had they lived on a different plantation. Then one day the master brought home a new slave to work as a driver, what they called a supervisor on their plantation. Tilly hated the man on sight. He was big and broad, and some who didn't know better might have considered him handsome, but there was an evil red glint in his eyes that terrified Tilly, and she hated the way he undressed her with his eyes whenever they met. She always felt an ache in her mind, like the pain of a sore tooth, whenever he was near her. Her old auntie took one look at the man and said that he had given his soul over to the darkness. She forbade Tilly to have anything to do with him, and Tilly was happy to agree. Fortunately, her work at the house kept her away from the driver, whom she had currently nicknamed Old Red Eyes. But the other ladies weren't so lucky. The women assigned to work in the cotton fields or tend to the indigo or other cash crops found themselves constantly under the eye of the cruel driver, who both hated women and lusted after them. He was an excellent worker, and the master was pleased by the money rolling in, but fear was rising among his slaves, and Tilly's aunt grew more apprehensive each day, wondering how it would all end. One afternoon, Tilly had finished work early and headed back to the slave village, eager to complete the dress she was sewing as a surprise gift for her aunt. Two of their friends were marrying tomorrow, and she wanted her auntie to wear the nice dress to the ceremony. On her way home, she felt a familiar sore tooth pain in her mind just before she saw the driver walking toward her down the main road. He was walking away from the slave village, which surprised her since he was always out in fields at this time of day. The driver's eyes scorched over Tilly as he approached, making her skin crawl. For some reason, the red glow within those dark eyes was very pronounced today. She nodded awkwardly to the driver and hurried past him, aware that he had stopped to watch her for a moment. An overwhelming sense of menace had filled her. She swallowed hard against the lump in her throat, her back prickling as she felt old Red Eye's gaze upon her. She heard him take one step in her direction, two, and then a shout of greeting broke the still. Gib, the massive plantation blacksmith, was striding down the road, waving a lunch sack. Hello, Tilly. Done with your task already? He called. Relieving poured through her. She felt her skin shuddering all over, as she had just stepped into cool water. From the corner of her eye, she saw old Red Eyes whirl around and head back towards the cotton fields as Gibbs stopped to pass the time of day with her. She felt deep in her bones that she had just had a narrow escape. In her eagerness to complete the new dress before her auntie came home, Tilly forgot all about the unpleasant incident. When her auntie came through the door, the new dress was lying on the chair, neatly folded and tied with a white ribbon. Tilly's aunt exclaimed eagerly over her new gift and gave Tilly a huge hug, which made the young woman weep with joy. Their happy moment was interrupted suddenly by a scream from the other end of the slave village. Tilly and her auntie stared at each other in alarm before racing out of their small house to find what was wrong. A small crowd had gathered around a sobbing woman who pointed with a shaking finger at the door of the brand new house that had been erected for the newlyweds to move into tomorrow after the marriage ceremony. A few brave souls hurried inside to see what was wrong and hurried back out once again, pale as a ghost, not to be sick. What is it? What's wrong? Asked old auntie sternly. They told her it was a murder. Tilly gasped and hugged herself, unable to believe what was being said. Old auntie frowned grimly and walked into the small slave cabin, gesturing for Tilly to follow her. The stench hit Tilly before her eyes adjusted to the dim light inside, hot, earthly, and metallic. Blood. It was blood. She blinked, willing her eyes to focus. Blood everywhere. On the walls, on the simple new furnishings made by the bride's father, and the congealing on the floor. The source of the blood was all too obvious. 3 of her neighbors, young and beautiful slave women, lay violated and brutally slain upon the earth floor. They were heaped willy-nilly just aside the doorway, where anyone coming home from their daily task could see them. It was an act of mind-boggling disrespect and arrogance on the part of their killer. The familiar sore-toothed feeling that she associated with old Red Eyes filled her mind, making her head throb with pain. And in her mind she again saw the driver, old Red Eyes, hurrying away from the slave village in the middle of the day when he had no business being there at all. She closed her eyes for a moment, unwilling to see The familiar dead faces twisted in terror and fear. These were women she'd seen every day, women she respected, women she liked. It was too much. Her stomach was rolling, and she wanted to run away and be sick. But if she was going to be the new conjure woman, she had to face this. So Tilly opened her eyes and looked again at the gruesome scene, taken in every detail. As she started about, she could feel old Auntie beside her, quivering with suspicious rage. When Tilly and her auntie withdrew from the violated house, they sent up to the plantation house for the master to come and see what had happened. While they waited for the master, Tilly told her old auntie what she had observed of the old Red Eyes on the main road. Old auntie nodded grimly. Her occult powers had told her who had done the deed immediately upon entering the new Tabby house. The master was swift to arrive, and even swifter to administer justice. The driver was strung up on an oak tree that grew next to the plantation main road, and his body was burned and then buried in an unmarked grave. The newlyweds quite naturally did not want to live in the violated house, so it was torn down and a new one was constructed on the other side of the village. The dead slave women were buried and mourned with proper respect, and life gradually resumed in its normal pace. About a month after the triple funeral, Tilly and her auntie were spending a peaceful evening in their small house, grinding herbs and mixing medicines at the table, when they heard footsteps pounding into the village. A moment later, someone began frantically knocking on the door and burst inside before they could answer it. Lily, one of the blacksmith's daughters, fell into their arms, gasping for breath, her eyes rolling in terror. Child, what is it, child? A ghost, the girl called. A ghost assaulted me, auntie, right out on the main road. A white mist came rising up from the old oak tree and became a man with glowing red eyes. I was so scared I couldn't move as he drifted towards me. Then he grabbed me with one cold hand and pulled me right off the road towards the woods, whispering threats and tugging at my dress. I screamed and started shouting all the holy prayers I knew, which made him curse and release me. I ran for my life, and I kept running until I got here. Tilly gasped and sat back on her heels. The old oak. It must have been the ghost of old Red Eyes. The driver was still present, and he was still trying to hurt the innocent. Lily's sinister sister had once been his victim, and she was but 1 month buried under the cool earth. Tilly and her auntie exchanged long looks over the girl's head. That wasn't good. Not good at all. Old auntie soothed the girl and sent her home with a mild sedative to drink at bedtime. Then she sat in front of the fire for a long time, not speaking a word to Tilly. She just hummed and gazed into the flames, reaching out toward the world around her and her supernatural senses. Tilly huddled in the chair and tried to do the same. She wasn't as good as Auntie, not yet, but she did feel the ache in her mind, like an occult sore tooth. It might have stirring of a cruel ghost. Finally, Auntie sighed and came out of her trance. We're going to have to go up to that old oak tree tomorrow morning at sunrise, she said. Tilly nodded. Meanwhile, they both needed to rest. It didn't do to mess with the occult when you're weary. They were up long before sunrise, packing a bag full of conjure dust, herbs, and other tools of their trade. The walk to the hanging oak never felt so long to Tilly, and the sore toothache inside her mind grew stronger and stronger with each step. Oh yes, old Red Eyes was back all right. Old Auntie stopped 100 feet from the tree and quietly started the cleansing ceremony they'd discussed the night before. Yard by yard, they consecrated the whole area to the lords of the manor, those spirits who represented light and health and goodwill. It took nearly an hour, As they worked, the sore tooth feeling faded a bit from Tilly's mind, but it didn't go away completely. She mentioned this to her aunt as they walked home, as weary as they had done a day's task. Old Auntie nodded grimly. Old Red Eyes is strong, she said. A spirit like that won't just go away when we ask. But I don't think he'll pull anyone else off the road after today's work. Old Auntie had cast a sideways look at Tilly, and Tilly knew what was coming next. Old Auntie wanted her to rest it out. She wanted Tilly to walk past that old oak tree at dark that night and see if the spirit of old Red Eyes attacked her. Tilly swallowed nervously into the night. She knew old Auntie would do it herself if her body wasn't so crippled with rheumatism that it made running impossible. Should anything go wrong, that is. Please don't let anything go wrong, the youngest conjure woman prayed to the lords of the manor. Please don't let anything go wrong. Tilly went out at dusk and sat quietly under the tree while spectacular sunset colored the sky, and then faded to the dark indigo night. Slowly the stars came out, and still she sat, fingering the actual small pouch to try to touch the sash, and meditating quietly. When everything grew quiet, save for the wind in the palm trees and the small scampering sides of night animals in the underbrush, Tilly rose. She patted the pouch again, rehearsing one last time the words and the gestures she was supposed to use if the ghost arose beside her. Then she started toward the main road leading back toward the village. Tilly walked slowly and purposely, deliberately enjoying the balmy night air, the sparkle of the stars, the rustle of the wings as the night bird took to the sky. She made note of the moment when the sounds began to die away, and though every creature was hiding from something or someone, the air became very chilly and goose flesh arose on Tilly's bare arms. The wind picked up and blew along the road, whipping Tilly's long hair to and fro. There was a cold voice in the wind, but it was not the Lord of the Light that spoke. The old tree was just ahead, a few yards from the main road. As Tilly neared the tree, a gossamer haze of white light appeared, hovering just above the ground. Tilly untied her sash with trembling fingers as the light grew longer and longer, twisting around itself in a spiraling motion that made the eyes ache. As she loosened the mouth of the pouch of the herbs and the conjure dust, Tilly saw the light form of a silhouette of a tall man. With glowing red eyes, she swallowed hard and took a steady breath as the shadowy ghost, which blacker than midnight, save for the white glow outlining its edges in the bright red glow of its eyes, floating rapidly toward her. The sore toothache was back in her head again, throbbing hard. Tilly pushed at the pain until it settled into a spare corner of her brain, trying to free her mind to do her work. Tilly waited until the shadow ghost reached the road. An arctic blast of cold air ran over her skin as old Red Eyes reached its all too solid hands toward her. With a whispered prayer, Tilly threw a pinch of conjure dust into the ghost's face. The ghost flinched and ducked, raising a shadow hand to cover the glowing eyes. Bone of my ancestors. Push the ghost from this road, Tilly intoned. She sprinkled the dust on the road at her feet, and the shadow took a step back. Tilly took a step forward, and then another, and then another. Dust of my ancestors. Thrust the ghost from this road, she intoned. Spreading another pinch of dust around her feet, the shadow gave a wail and fell back again, until its dark feet touched the grass on the side of the road. Tilly moved forward, and the shadow moved with her, still desiring to possess her if it could. but each time it tried to step onto the road, small red sparks flew up from the dirt, pushing it back. The third time this happened, Tilly threw another pinch of dust at the shadow. Old Red Eyes wailed in fury, and the shadow ghost lost its shape. All that remained in the rolling cloud of darkness was a pair of glowing red eyes. Spirit of my ancestors, keep this ghost from this road, Tilly intoned, sprinkling more dust at her feet. Carefully, she went through these gestures and words of the banishing ceremony they had used that morning, reinforcing them with the dust and the herb mixture. With each word and each gesture, the red eyes retreated back towards the tree, glaring malevolently at her. When the last pinch of dust was gone, Tilly clapped her hands. A wall of light sprang up along the edges of the road. It acted as a barrier, prohibiting old Red Eyes from stepping onto the road and dragging anyone off it. Beside the oak tree, the dark ghost gave a frustrated roar and disappeared with a popping sound like a cork coming out of a wine bottle. Tilly sagged with relief. It was done. She had said the final word of power, and the wall of light disappeared from final view. Though it remained there in the spiritual realm, holding old Red Eyes back, it was the best she and old Auntie could do. Old Red Eyes was beyond their power to banish, but at least they could contain him. Tilly dragged herself home, too exhausted to do more than hand her old Auntie the empty pouch, and fell into bed. But old Auntie knew the task wasn't done. She felt it took. From time to time, old Red Eyes still appeared by the old oak tree, especially if a pretty young woman went walking along the main road at night. But following the banishing ceremony, all that remained of the ghost was the glowing pair of malevolent red eyes that would follow the women along the road for a few hundred yards, keeping pace with her no matter how fast she ran. No one came to any harm from these encounters, but they were scary enough to make everyone in the slave village avoid the main road at night, which was probably just as well. Neither Tilly nor her old auntie knew what might happen if anyone stepped off the road near the old oak tree, and they didn't want to find out. Well, that was Old Red Eyes. This is from the Spooky Florida Tales of Folklore in Jacksonville, Florida. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you come back and listen to another tale from Spooky Florida, or the Spooky South, or the spooky campfire stories that we do have. I have 3 of the 17 books. I am going to get Spooky Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and probably the Southwest, because I'm sure Texas has got some really good spooky stories. So if you enjoyed them, let us know. Give us a thumbs up, comment, send us an email, whatever. And join us next week for another tale of Spooky Florida from Tracy's Florida Homestead. Have a great night.